So we are on our third week in the study of the book, Ordinary Mysticism by Mirabai Starr, Your Life as Sacred Ground. It's about drawing our attention to the mystical in life and drawing forth the mystical within each one of us. Allowing ourselves to receive the invitation that the master teacher and saints and sages throughout time have offered, but that still today only a reserved few seem to take that on. That you too have this light, you too have these abilities, you too have that glory within you, that we are the expression of our source in motion, and that there are wonders available to us, in us, through us, as us, and among us that are yet untapped. In the first week, we talked about intention, setting our intention, holding the space and working with the human condition and the ego mind and the lack sense of self that might say, well, me, a mystic, you've got to be kidding. My family would laugh at you, right? Or my partner would laugh, or I'd laugh. Couldn't possibly be something that I could experience. But setting a holy and sacred intention, so aligning ourselves. In the second chapter, we talked about our intention, or our attention. So where our attention goes is to our intention, yeah? But sometimes we set an intention and we just say, let the magic happen. And then we put our attention on other things, no? The distraction of what happened with this thing, what's going on there, what's happening inside of me. The human condition, the limitations. So we talked about attention and creating a mindful gaze at the world and at ourselves so that we can be in alignment with our intention. Intention is one thing, but intention plus alignment is an entirely different experience. This week, it's about surrendering. Some of us may hear the word surrender and think, oh, yes, thank goodness. Oh, let me just go with the flow of the river. And some hear surrender and they think, ooh, I don't want to give up my power. I don't want to give up my control. My mind needs to know. I need answers. How could I surrender when I'm not informed? How can I surrender when it looks like this or it looks like that? But if you're a paddler, you know, right, that you go with the rhythm of the river. You go with the water. Now, that might even mean going upstream, doing whatever you want to do with the water, but you have to work with what is. You have to work with what's going on. If you're a musician, you know about surrender because no great music comes from holding so much structure, right? What would music sound like if it was pressed through a paradigm of my fingers need to be like this, my voice needs to da 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 da, exact. Even the most exacting artists let go into the flow. And that's where the wonder comes. That's where the awe comes, because that's the moment that the floodgates open. Golfers talk about it when they're all on the golf course. Artists talk about when they let loose and they allow the moment to consume them. Mysticism and mystics feel it in everyday life, in divine encounters, person to person, in conversations, in a meal, in prayer, using sacred mantras. I was recently at the Overland Park women's retreat, and part of my role was to do the music, and we were making mala bead bracelets, and in that I shared a song that I had written, and I don't share the song. I recorded the two little songs that were chants. But probably if I was in the Buddhist tradition, I would have more opportunities to share those songs, but they don't always seem relevant, or maybe for whatever reason, I just haven't really brought them out. And I thought they wanted a chant, and I don't know a lot of other people's music, so if someone asks me to do music, it's a limited repertoire of what they're going to get. And I decided to just pull out one of my own, right? Because it was easier than learning someone else's. And this song went something like this. I am love, you are love, God is love, so let it be all that it is, all that it is, all that it is. God is love, so let it be all that it is. Joe, I know you already know it. So I did that song, and we all chanted that song as we made the mala bead bracelets. And after it, my daughter came up to me, and she said, because she came on the encounter, and she said to me, she said, Mom, I have an earworm with that song. I can't get rid of it. It's in my head on the way back. Mom, that song, it's an earworm. Today is about surrender. Do you want to surrender to the earworm that embodies a holy encounter, that chants a holy name, that brings you to the divine, to the sacred? Or do you want to have an earworm that is full of the news, the agenda, the perspective, the spin, the delivery, the intention of others, whether it's intentional or unintentional, but the scope of what is outside of you that is then rehearsed in your own mind over and over again, singing to you in the morning when you wake up, during the day as you check out the world around you, and through the night as you sleep. I have a girlfriend that just told me recently that she had this nightmare. We haven't gotten to talk about the nightmare yet, but she said, I had a nightmare the other night. And then she had all these other divine encounters, so she was sharing these with me. And we got to the divine encounters because my little one was present, but we reserved the nightmare for another time. But even just that little earworm gave me horrors last night. I had a dream last night. You know those dreams where it came back to you? Like I almost wouldn't share it because it was so real. The possibility that I actually did this, that I was actually part of it, that this actually happened was so terrifying. I mean, I thought about even speaking this and thought, well, no, but because what if? Like you know what I'm talking about in the realm where the dream, the nightmare is real? Like it's so real. Like maybe it's a past life real, I don't know. But I killed someone. I was a part. It was an accident. There was some sort of thing that happened, and there were other people here. But like then we didn't want anyone to find out because we were afraid we'd go to jail. And so we did something with the body. You know, we made it disappear. I don't really know. I wasn't like part of the doing something, but I was definitely like, yes, let's make that choice and just make it go away. And it comes back to haunt me as if it's real life. And in the dream, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to jail. I am going to jail. I am going to have to find someone to raise my daughter. The congregation is going to know that I am a murderer and I am in jail. Life is over as I know it. And it was an uncomfortable night. Needless to say, I did not get a good rest. And it wasn't imaginary in my mind. Do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't imaginary. Like it was very much real. And I've had this dream so many times in my life. I don't remember it. I'll remember it now because I'm speaking about it. And Reverend Brenda's on our live stream. So she's going to unpack it when she comes to town and it will be a thing. But I usually don't remember this dream at all until I have it. And then it's like someone unlocked a cupboard and I can see what's in there. Earworms. The mind is a susceptible thing, is it not? We are here to steward our minds. It is no small task. They can run rampant with all sorts of things. There are infinite choices in every moment, infinite possibilities of what we can engage in, what we can feed ourselves, what we can ponder. Are our earworms holy? Are we doing enough, or could we do more to open the floodgates, to open the door, to center ourselves in life, so that what we are rehearsing, what we are giving this computer of a mind, tips the scales, tips the balance of the holy? What could we do? In this chapter about surrender, it talks about surrendering to awe. And in my contemplations about communicating this chapter, I literally kind of had a blank. Like, what do you say about that? How do you teach that? Like, how do you teach? Like, I don't have any idea how to talk about or teach or presence the fact that when I walked in this morning, these babies spoke to me, and like I saw the yellow and the green and the red, and it's I don't know how to put into words what happens with a musician, with an artist, in a conversation, in a moment that brings us to our knees. I don't know how to teach how to open up to that. Until this realization here, the whole time in her title. Like literally I read the chapter and literally I read the title and I was like, I don't know how anyone gives that to anyone else, right? And she says, surrender. Surrender to the awe. And I think that leads us into the insight and into the realization that that's because it's not something that you can lead people to, that you can necessarily even lead yourself to. It's something that is here, that is present all of the time when we surrender. When we go with the flow, when we take away and subtract some things, like the earworms that don't serve our highest good. What brings you into moments of awe? Think about that for a moment. If you have your phone or you're on the chat, go ahead and put it in. What brings you to that moment that we're describing, that we're talking about in this concept of like a baby being born? Perfect harmony. Harmonies that you can actually sing, a harmony that you can feel into. Like I was feeling that when Nikki and Jessica were singing. I was feeling what they create. What is it for you? Really think about it. Just do like a mental journal. What brings you into awe? What makes you amazed? Her journal prompt this week is, I am amazed. I am amazed. I can be brought into awe by looking at those live cams. Like there's a live cam in space, that you can look at. There's one by rivers in Alaska with bears and salmon. I order science magazines that have inventions and like incredibly smart people that are like solving wild problems, because I can look at the problems and I can either look at it as far as the rhetoric of the problem and get depressed and upset about humanity, or I can look at it and I can see the same problem, but I'm looking through the lens of our intelligence, of our inventions, our creation, our intentions, our goodwill, all the good that's out there. Practice random acts of wonder. I'm thinking about these as micro Sabbaths. We have set our intention to walk as mystics, on the lookout for the wellspring of meaning streaming from the heart of our most difficult or seemingly trivial daily experiences. We have cultivated a contemplative gaze, become willing to be with things as they are. We now open ourselves to wonder. 20th century Jewish philosopher Abraham Joshua Heschel said, our goal should be to live life in radical amazement. To get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed. Does anyone feel like I can't afford to live like that right now? That would be irresponsible with what I see going on in the world. Read the Book of Joy by Desmond Tutu and the Dali Lama. Go to spiritual teachers and spiritual practices that have dealt with suffering and dealt with the human condition and dealt with atrocities and dealt with fear and dealt with panic and dealt with the realities of suffering in life. Go to those teachers and you know what they will say? You cannot afford to do other than that. We cannot afford to do other than that because it goes in like an earworm, and then guess what? Scripture teaches us and shows us, then we become that. What is in our words, what is in our mouth, what is in our minds is our sanctuary, is our practice. So if I can sit at the feet of the Dali Lama and Desmond Tutu, and from their practices, trust them, that my becoming immersed in suffering out of compassion for the world around me and even the world within me, if I can be consumed by that, if I let those fears and let that take over my mind and all of my reality, what left do I have to give? And they say the practice is more to turn that around, because we can bring, when we are filled up, we can bring our love, our peace, our compassion. And it can be a joy to serve, a joy to be able to be a healing presence in the midst of a diagnosis, rather than the human condition, which is very natural. What happens to all of us is just we go, but can we be with that and bring it to the practice and then get clear on what will radiate and resonate and co-create within our minds? In Scripture, it does say that when you observe, when you see, you will be disturbed. And when you are disturbed, after that, you will be in awe. You will awaken. You know, a lot of Scripture, right, has the word fear in it. Fear this, fear that. That's how we've got, I think, to such an interesting version of Christianity that I do not believe matched the master teacher, Jesus the Christ. Because of all this fear, fear this, fear that, fear the wrath of God. Well, you know, if you look at biblical scholars and you look in ancient Hebrew, there's another translation for the word fear. The word, you know, because all the words, obviously, it wasn't F-E-A-R, right? Awe, radical amazement. Reverence, respect. So if we're looking at a spiritual practice that grounds us and roots us, can we take Proverbs 9:10? The fear of the Lord, the law, is the beginning of wisdom. Lord can be translated to Jesus the Christ. It can be translated to your higher self. It can be translated to the law, that this is how it works. This is how creation works. This is how the mind works. This is how the soul and the spirit works. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, the awe of the law. Could you imagine if Christianity would flip on its head. And if everything that was taught about fearing was about revering, reverence, was about awe, how would that change culture as we know it? Really? How have teachings of fear impacted our everyday life and our culture? And what if awe was the ultimatum? You know, an ultimatum being like, you gotta do this. What if that was awe? Not fear, guilt, shame, because awe brings forth a different pulse in the law of mind action, a different intention that then gets attention, that then we surrender to and we move forward with and we make and allow space for. In 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind." Another translation for sound mind is self-discipline, steady, clarity, wisdom. She goes on to say, Anne Lamont describes these kind of micro-Sabbaths as practicing random acts of wonder. The start of wonder is not knowing. I invite you to dismantle your preconceptions, to pull on the loose thread of your belief system and let them unravel. Allow yourself to be like a child seeing the world through fresh eyes instead of trying to control life by making sense of it. Embrace ambiguity and paradox as being the domain of the truest things. The holy lives in mystery, in darkness, in liminal space. Not knowing isn't a problem to be solved, rather a reality to be celebrated. In Zen Buddhism, this open stance is called the beginner's mind. Cultivate it. Mysticism is about union and communion with the source of all being, which is love. This fountain bubbles up from where you stand and reveals itself in the midst of your regular life. She says to be a mystic is to say yes to your embodied experience. So let us say yes to the micro Sabbaths and to the renewing of our mind and to the divine holy earworm. Namaste.